It's that time again. It's another Stark Dark Open series. After the success of the first one, they're hosting a second one. Once again, doing standard and retro, this time on November 1st and November 2nd. It's going to be in Illinois at Impact Gaming Center. And if you want to find out more info as we get closer to the date of the tournaments, check out this link. What's up, everybody? We got another retro deck profile for you, and this time we are revisiting the One Punch Man All Might deck. That's right, we got the True Form All Might for the starting 7 hand size, but the win condition was most likely going to be the first All Might, technically, All Might 1, the 5-hander. So if you don't know, All Might True Form can basically, once per game, first form, place a copy of All Might, any version, on top of him, and he transforms into that character. You don't have two characters in your stage. It's like this All Might True Form goes away and is replaced by whichever other All Might you put on top. So I do have All Might 3 here. Which one is this? Yeah, All Might 3. So this is kind of like your mid-rangey sort of game plan All Might. This is when things are going kind of weird, but your opponent leaves themselves open. And it's, this deck definitely wants to kill early, but the high difficulty of the attacks means that a mid range isn't like super possible, but you might have to transform into this All Might sometimes. They both of these All Mights care about Fury and Punch attacks, and that's pretty important for the lineup. But most of the time, your main win condition is going to be this All Might here. Enhance commit, your Fury or Punch attack gets powerful X. X equals the number of cards in your hand. The most common number you're going to want that to be is about 9. How we get 9 cards in our hand is we have form once per turn, permanently reduce your character's hand size by 1, draw 3 cards. So you start with 7 cards as true form. You're going to place 1 from your hand down to become this All Might, so you'll have 6. But then you're going to draw back up to 9, and then you're going to play an attack called Detroit Smash most of the time, or you're going to play Guilty Throne. But both of these attacks draw 3 cards. So Detroit Smash has discard a momentum, add up to 3 cards from your hand to your momentum. And it also has All Might Enhance, permanently reduce your character's hand size by 1, draw 3 cards. And the game is going to be decided one way or another. Either you're going to be the worst 5-hander of all time after this turn, or you're going to win the game, right? Our backup plan is Guilty Throne. So in the past, there was a card called Final Smash. I guess it's still legal. This is the card from the past, but the standard version of this deck a couple of years ago played Final Smash, which would stack necessary components that you needed on top of your deck. It's also a Fury Punch. So again, if your opponent left themselves open to an easy win, you could still combo off with that card. But Guilty Throne's a Fury that does a slightly better job of all of this. You get to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You can remove them, and then if you do, you can add 2 cards from your discard pile on top of your deck, and then it has all symbol enhanced, draw 3 cards. So for one more difficulty, you get slightly better stats. You can still add powerful to this. You can still add All Might 3 stats to this because it is a Fury, and you get to draw the cards combined with stacking them on top. So this can go get you the All Might that you need for a later turn and the Detroit Smash you need to kill, right? But one of the things that I think makes the deck worth revisiting now and a little bit spicier is this nasty, nasty, nasty card, Kuga, also known as the Yuri Cho Upper. So you can see I call this deck the All Might Cho Upper, and that's because this is one of the gnarliest attacks that they've ever printed. It flies so far under the radar, but I can tell you this card has tilted me off the planet. So first E, commit 1 card in your opponent's staging area. Any card. Asset, backup, character card. It's done. It's committed. But what makes this kind of a win condition, despite it being 2 damage, is the static ability. The speed of this attack cannot be reduced by effects. Not reduced below printed like Determined Advance. You cannot reduce it. You cannot minus speed this. You cannot return it to printed speed because that would be reducing it. You cannot even flip the stats, right? This is how we saw Elder Toguro combo decks would protect the damage of their attack and then swap the speed and damage, and the damage just wouldn't be reduced. It wouldn't go down. So this one is super, super gnarly, super gross. It defends itself, right? It clears the way for itself. It gets rid of problem cards. And sometimes you're going to play this card first and feel things out. And then, maybe you play a Detroit Smash to win, because this is another card that you have to play, because you do have to get momentum. The hardest part of this combo, the hardest part about playing this deck, at least in my opinion, is getting momentum. And in the past, I did play Cremation. We're still playing Cremation, hoping our rival, plays at least 3 cards turn 1 going first. But it also had Capture Evildoers. Now, Capture Evildoers is legal in this metagame, but people who see this character, know anything that's going on, probably won't take momentum, because that was one of the main ways that it would start to get momentum. Is Capture Evildoers enhanced to basically remove a rival momentum and then you get one. But if they take no momentum, you can't do it that way. So we got a couple other ways. So we've got Cremation. We've also got 1 copy of Spell Circle. You could only have 1 copy of this card in your deck, and it does absolutely nothing in your hand. You can't do the enhance because it's a void enhance. But when it's in your discard pile and when it's in your remove from game pile, you can lose a card from your hand to get this card into your momentum, and you can do it on both turns. So if you go first and you build, 5, 6 cards, and you check a Spell Circle, on your rival's turn, you can discard that last card. They can't attack you anyways, and you can start, your turn 2 with a momentum. So it's kind of like a neat little backup plan. It is, as a Yu-Gi-Oh player would say, a garnet. It does nothing in your hand. You don't want to draw it. It can't even block. But I think that having another way to get momentum to get the party started is very cool. Got to put 1 Filled with Doubt in. If you actually test this deck out a lot and you can move around the action some to include more of this card, that probably makes a lot of sense. But we got to have that. Sugar Rush Power Up is another speed pump. So Cremation, the way you're going to win most games is you're going to get powerful 9+. You're going to have 3 momentum. You're going to dump 30 damage onto a move, 27 plus damage. And then you're going to be using Cremations that you drew to push the attack into the unblockable zone. If you have two Cremations turn 2, you can make this a 10 speed move where they cannot reduce the speed, right? So that should be unblockably fast. If not, we've also got a little bit of Sugar Rush Power Up. These numbers are the numbers that the original deck by Andrew New ran. So I'm going with 2 Sugar Rush and a Cremation. Throwdown is cool. It can give 1 speed and 3 damage. Not really what we want it for. What we want this card for is after your opponent plays an ability that would increase the damage of an attack, cancel its effects. So that does protect us. However, most damage reducing abilities and all damage resets are abilities that would increase the damage of an attack. Let me say that again. So Moment of Normalcy, trying to reduce your attack's damage down to printed, because it can increase an attack's damage back up to printed, it can be canceled by Throw It Down. So this is a hand trap to protect our combo. It's also a +0 high block that doesn't count towards progressive difficulty. Most of the time it's not worth the damage pump, because you're going to get more of it being in your, more damage from it being in your hand than you would actually playing it as a form. So keep that in mind, but if you need to string out with All Might 3, this can be pretty solid, but it's mostly a hand trap for resets. And you're going to see that as a common theme among the cancels in this deck. So we've got we've got Night Watch, which cancels any non-character enhanced by removing one of these mini actions. And remember, you can remove Spell Circle and then add it to your momentum from the remove from game pile. So that's kind of neat. It's not really like effective. It doesn't add a whole lot to the deck, but that's cool to do. You've got Mortal Resurrection, which is after your opponent plays an ability that cancels your enhance or responsibility, cancel its effects. So you need this because your character gives powerful to the attack, but your rival can still cancel the powerful ability with any generic enhance cancel. So You're going to want this. This could easily be, all of these cancels could easily be bumped up, but I've only got them as a one of because they're unique, and we do want the game to go really, really quick. So getting jammed up on your opening hands, not really the play. Funky Tomato. So this is another one, kind of like Throwdown. This says after your opponent plays an ability that would increase this attack's damage, cancel it. But that works for resets. That works for things that put things to printed damage. It doesn't work on Invincible Body because that brings it down to 0. But this does work on Referee Jury because you can put an attack up from 0 to 4 with it. So keep that in mind when you see these cards in here. They're a little, a little tricky to actually realize why they're in here. But that's why I make this deck profile video. Living Pendulum. There's 3 of this one, even though it's unique, because it cancels so many things. It cancels an ability that modifies the speed of an attack. So again, anything that increases, anything that decreases, up, down, plus, minus, character abilities. This cancels character abilities. If your opponent has a character that reduces the speed of an attack to 0, say like Dark Deku, if Dark Deku tries to flash your attack, reducing its speed to 0, you cancel that effect. So be very, very careful when you read this card because it cancels character abilities. So that's why it's a 3 of. It cancels Moment of Normalcy. Even if Moment of Normalcy is trying to reduce your damage, the ability on Moment of Normalcy reduces or increases speed and damage at the same time. It's the same ability. So if your opponent tries to reduce your damage of your Yuricho upper to printed, they are playing an ability that modifies speed. Pass through walls. This is a asset cancel, and Breaker might actually stop you too. Breaker might mess you up when you have like those few setup turns. But most attack wipes, most attack negates, like Cape of No Return and Swordfish 2 in the format, are on assets. So you'll want a couple of these. That's it for the major cancels. We've also got a character ability cancel, Pink Gi. I think this one's pretty funny. This one might be a card you swap out just for like early build consistency, but keep this one sideboarded because response remove, opponent plays an ability on their character card cancel is really strong. So I missed a couple of the momentum generators though. We've got Hacker. If you take damage, you get momentum, and people are definitely gonna try to poke you before they know what the deck's doing. Living with Determination is probably the best one. Playable while committed, just enhance, add this to momentum. You need 1 momentum to get the party started. This just does it, and it does it playable while committed, so at an amazing rate. Hero Salute, before a card would be added to the top of your deck, you can add to momentum instead, and after you check a character, you can add it to your hand. But this is a 2/5 with no block, and it's really more of like an emergency situation, so I've only got it as a 1 of. But it does 2 things that your deck wants to do. So when you go to Guilty Throne cards on top of your deck, you can, if you only need to draw 1 of them, you can sandbag 1 to the top of your deck. So you stack Detroit Smash and any other card, you respond, add the other card to your momentum, and then draw Detroit Smash, and there you go. You've got your win con. As far as other cards that grab characters, Fusion of Souls has first F 6+, just add a character to your hand. And then if things go way too long, Deadlock E Flip, commit your rival's character, can be absolutely massive. Usually retro games are going to Deadlock. It's because that character is like very specifically walling you out. So this could be, backup plan, but it's mostly just check a 6, get my All Might, have one part of the combo. Because again, you got to have All Might 1. I guess you could just build All Might. Normally, to first form it, you got to have it in hand, but in Rochester Retro, you can just like hard pass it on a 6, and then you have All Might's enhanced for the rest of the game. So that's kind of cool. We've got Radical Edward. After you check this card, you add a character that shares a name to your hand. Cool stuff. Excuse me, but it also has enhanced commit 1 asset or foundation in your opponent's staging area with 1 or more keywords. Guess what that keyword is going to be 90% of the time? Unique. A unique asset gets committed by this. Unique foundations get committed by this. So it is a nice little answer. And again, when you check it, it can have some added benefit. Even just adding one more card to your hand overall is one more to the powerful rating, and the less momentum you spend on powerful, the more momentum you have for EX, since Detroit Smash is probably still gonna be your main go-to to try and win the game, especially if you have cancels like Living Pendulum out, then the Yuricho upper won't be as big of a deal. But I love the static on this, and the idea of having like a foolproof speed pump is really nice. Champa Muay Thai. Now this is just an all-star defense. You know, it's beauty pageant queen on a 1/4, which is so much better than a 2/5. It's not even funny. You can also change the zone of your attacks to high, but that's almost never going to be worth it because the main way people are going to be able to block your attacks is with Flame Aura, which is a continuous ability. So making it into a high is going to delete, it being a partial block. So I wouldn't press that button too often against evil, death, and fire decks. I think it is, but this is just we got to play some defense. We're probably not going to pop off every turn too. And then easily excite is just a zero diff that pump speed because again we're just trying to get to just unblockable enough, right? We just need to be just fast enough to be unblockable. So this is the basic version of the deck. You're going to need to side in specific answers. And there's one card I originally was thinking should be like sideboard worthy, but I wanted to highlight it here. So Burn Knuckle is a punch, so it works for your character's abilities. It's a 2 mid for 5, which is very unappealing, but the damage of this attack cannot be reduced by effect. So if you're playing against a deck where maybe they have a bunch of invincible iron bodies and that doesn't get canceled by Funky Tomato, and it doesn't get canceled by Living Pendulum, and you don't want to just rely on only Night Watch, right? You can also play Nullify. Nullify is another, while I'm on the subject. Nullify on the sideboard for this deck, super, super good, maybe even main board worthy. But it's just a little narrow because it's not Revoke. But anyways, Burn Knuckle says the damage can't be reduced. And again, not below printed, just not reduced at all. So if you're playing against an opponent where, they're pretty much all in on DRing, or it's like a Hanji style deck and they've put their whole hand into their stage, you can build a Psychic Spirit Glass, you can snipe the block so they can't play the block, and then all you got to worry about is the damage coefficient, then Burn Knuckle is your guy. Again, 2 speed, way harder to make unblockably fast than 6 speed, but this is another good backup plan. This is another good sideboard piece for very specific decks that are just not interested in blocking. So definitely go over your sideboard, make sure you've got all the weird little corner cases you want solved, because there's a lot of different ways you can go. Like I mentioned, you can go for like more cancels with Nullify. You might want more copies of Mortal Resurrection. If your opponent's relying on resets, more Funky Tomatoes. You might even want to sideboard just like a different All Might. You might want just more spam foundations, and you might decide, hey, let me side in a couple real attacks, side in like a Valiant Assault, and I'm just going to play All Might 3 for this game, right? So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this deck. All Might is very much alive and well in the retro format, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. This took way longer than I thought to explain every card in this deck, but most of the time you're just going to be building as many foundations as you can turn 1. You're going to become a 10-hander, and you're going to resolve a Detroit Smash and just win the game turn 2. And it's just that easy.